Hey readers, nice to see you. I'm really excited to tell you that we are going to be embarking on a whole new unit. This unit is called Memoir. Okay, so we're going to be learning a little bit more about what memoir actually is over the course of the next few days. Um, in our lessons, but just to give you a basic idea, a memoir is a piece of writing that is true and it's about the person's life who's writing it. It's a little different than an autobiography. An autobiography is about somebody's whole life. A memoir is usually about something smaller, a part of their life, something that really stood out to them. So I'm going to be reading aloud one of my all-time favorite books by one of my all-time favorite authors, Ralph Fletcher, to you, which is also a memoir. So you'll get some exposure to what a memoir sounds like. And I'm going to begin reading that aloud to you today. So just to give you an idea, here's the cover, Marshfield Dreams When I Was a Kid, a memoir by Ralph Fletcher. And basically it's just about his upbringing, his life growing up in a place called Marshfield, Massachusetts. So without further ado, I'm going to begin. I'll be reading aloud just a few chapters to you at a time. All right, so the first chapter is called Marshfield. There are some fun pictures here that I'll show you. Oop, wrong way. So this is Ralph when he was about 4 or 5. Marshfield. There's a town called Marshfield in the state of Vermont. You can also find a Marshfield in Maine, one in Missouri, and one in Wisconsin. I grew up in Marshfield, Massachusetts. The curly part of Massachusetts that sticks out into the ocean is Cape Cod. Marshfield sits on the ocean just above that curl. I live on Acorn Street in a regular house bordered by forests on 2 sides. Dad owns 7 acres of woods in the back. Across the dirt road, we had Ailes Woods, a forest of pine trees. The pines dropped millions of needles, which gave the forest floor a nice springy feel. Those trees were great for climbing. If I crawled out too far on a limb and fell, the soft needles cushioned my fall, so I never got hurt. The woods held magical things. We found snake skins, real Indian arrowheads, box turtles, beehives, snake spit in tall grass. We dug up the buried trash from people who lived there many years before. We saw gravestones so old that we can no longer read the names carved in them. We found all kinds of mushrooms. Some were edible and others were poisonous toadstools. Mom said to think of them as strangers. Some are good, some are bad. And since you couldn't tell the difference, it was best to leave them alone. One morning in the woods, I stepped into a fairy ring of mushrooms, a big circle 10 feet across. There was a tiny stream in our backyard, small enough so that you can step from one bank to the other. The stream flowed under the dirt driveway and formed a swamp at the edge of Ailes Woods. I loved the dank smell of that swamp and all the things that lived there: mossy logs and goggle eyed frogs, bloodsuckers and eels, and foul smelling skunk cabbage. Half the swamp was underwater, and the other half contained thick, dense mud. It was impossible to walk through that muck without getting stuck. More than once I tried, I left behind one of my sneakers, a sole sunk forever at the bottom of the swamp. I got in trouble for that, but today I'm glad to know that something of mine was left behind in Marshfield. And here is my story. All right, the next chapter is called Junior. Here's a picture of Ralph when he's 2 years old. It says me, age 2, in a wagon. As the oldest of 9, I was named after my father and my grandfather. Some kids on Acorn Street teased me, calling, "Hey, Junior." Not that I minded. I liked having the same name as my father, but it did cause confusion in the house. Whenever Mom called out, "Ralph," Dad and I would both answer, "Yeah?" "No, Big Ralph," or "Little Ralph," she yelled back to clarify things. I guess that would have annoyed some people, but it didn't really bother me. Dad was tall and handsome. I bragged to my friends that my father was so cool he had 3 jobs: teacher, milkman, and bartender. I was proud of him. I loved knowing that Ralph could fit us both in one snug syllable. The next chapter is called Statue, age 3. And here's a picture of Ralph with his sister, Lainey, and Jimmy, his brother. By the time I was 3, I already had a brother, Jimmy, who was a year younger than me. My sister, Elaine, was a year younger than Jim. Dad worked as a traveling book salesman, and Mom took care of us when Dad was away. Dad came home on Friday nights. On Saturdays, after breakfast, the whole family would play outside. As soon as I saw Mom and Dad coming out of the door, I'd get excited and run to the big boulder in the front yard. We were about to play my favorite game, Statue. I arranged my body in a certain pose and froze. Then I closed my eyes, waiting. My heart beat faster as they came closer. "What's this?" Dad asked. "It looks like a statue," Mom said. She had Jimmy and Laney in the stroller and pushed them closer. "A statue of a little boy," Dad exclaimed. "It's beautiful. It's absolutely perfect. Amazing." Mom knelt to touch my nose. I could feel the eyes of my whole family studying me closely. Jimmy laughed. The baby just stared. "A little boy carved in stone?" Mom exclaimed. "You think we could buy it?" "Hey, look," Dad said. "There's a price tag right here on the sleeve." I remained absolutely still, barely breathing, while Dad examined the invisible price tag. "How much?" Mom asked impatiently. "How much is it?" "It's a lot." $100, Dad told her. "But who cares? It's worth every penny. I'd pay $500 for a statue like this. I'd pay 1,000. I tried hard not to smile. "Excuse me, madam," Dad said to baby Lainey. "Is this your store? My wife and I would like to buy this statue here. $100? Certainly. Here you go. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. What? Ship it? No, no, thank you. We'll just put it in our car and drive it home." He handed Lainey to Mom and picked me up. With me in his lap, stiff as a board, he sat on the boulder, Mom and Dad beside him. Dad pretended to turn on the car ignition. "Drive carefully," Mom said. "We don't want the statue to get damaged." "Don't worry," Dad replied while turning the steering wheel. He pretended to park the car. "Here we are." "Where should we put the statue?" Mom asked. "I've got the perfect place for it," he said. "Right here in our front yard." "How wonderful," Mom exclaimed. "We've got two boys, but I've always wanted another." "Look at the detail on the face." Dad bent down to examine me closely. "It almost looks alive." That was my cue. Slowly, I lifted my chin, looked up, first at my father and then at my mother. "My goodness," they shouted. "He's alive! Hugs, kisses!" "It's a real boy," Dad exclaimed. "Would you like to live with us?" Shyly, I nodded. With more hugs and kisses, they welcomed me into the family. "It's a miracle," Dad kept saying. "An absolute miracle."